Come join me in my creative space where we can paint, learn, and have a few laughs. So get comfy and let's get started. Kat here. Thanks for joining me today to paint this very playful penguin that I found on Unsplash, and will link it below in the description. I just drew it freehand, and I wanted to make it look even a little more playful, like it was jumping in a puddle. So I'm beginning by splashing some clear water onto the background, just dots. In hindsight, I would have done this. If I were to do this again, I would have used a bigger brush with bigger droplets. And then I wet the penguin's head and I put in some turquoise blue. Now, the turquoise blue is very opaque, and so make sure your paper, if you have this color, is quite wet because like I said, it's opaque, and so to keep it transparent, you need to add even more water than you think. You see right there, the paper's getting dry, and you can see how thick how opaque that color is. And then I soften the edges because I want a very subtle amount of this color showing in the background. So that's why I wish I had used a bigger droplets earlier when I was spraying the paper, because that would have bled into the droplets a little more. And there I'm just splashing on some of the turquoise in the background. And I'm using the turquoise on the penguin's head because I want that to be the highlight color. Because even though he's quite in the dark, like it's quite a dark kind of, like he's not in the sunlight or anything, he still does have highlights on his face. So I'm using that turquoise color as the highlight. And I'm trying to keep everything relatively soft. And I'm using kind of, this is called, I think this is permanent violet I'm using. It's kind of in between a purple and a red. So this is pretty easy to mix up on your own. Just use a cool red and a cool blue, and you should get and you put more red in and you will get this color. Or something close. I just needed it to be cool because I'm trying to make his belly look round, and so you need a cool color to make things look recessed, and you need a warm color to bring things forward and towards you. That always helps. There's little tricks to watercolor that you learn over the years. And I'm also using that mauvey color to make the wings look more rounded because they're in shadow in there. I just loved this little picture of the penguin. I thought he looked like a little rascal. You know, he's jumping, and so I drew the picture with his head a little more exaggerated forward and his foot so that it looks like he's really jumping in the puddle to splash somebody. So I like that. It attracted me to this fun little guy. And I'm just adding some darker color right around the edges so you can see where one of his feet is up high and the other one is low, splashing in what will soon be a puddle. And their feet are really funny looking, actually. So I didn't want too much detail, of course. And they're kind of clunky and you see right there his foot. They're pretty clunky, their feet. I guess they have a lot to support. So it would stand to reason that they're big. And they swim, right? So I suppose they web out, they fan out. So I chose this orangey, this Paranone orange, and I added a little bit of Indian yellow into certain areas, like on the top of the foot, so it looked a little brighter, a little lighter. And he also has a bit of orange on his beak. It's just a fun little project to do while trying to relax. And I always keep these small ones, and then if I need a card, I will dig through my smaller paintings and I can easily make a card. This one is roughly 4.5 by 6, I believe. So that's perfect for the front of a card. I glue it onto cardstock, so you can buy them already made at Michael's, and sometimes even the dollar store has them in the gift section, the gift wrap section. So you can sometimes find them there. Now I re-wet the head, and I'm using a gray color that I mixed with indigo and burnt sienna. And I'm just trying to map out where I think the darkest will be. And this color, it will show through as well. Because watercolor is transparent, you will still see some of that turquoise in certain spots. And if you lose too much of it, you can always drop a little bit more in. But it's always better to start off slowly and lightly and add to it, because it's really difficult to take dark colors away. Or if they're staining, it's a little difficult to take staining colors away. And so the round of his head, he looks like he has a cheek, kind of. If you look at the photo, you will see that you can definitely see his cheek, and that's why I'm using the photo, just for reference for the lights and the shadows. And I'm keeping everything soft. So while the paper's wet, I'm dropping in. I added some black to the mix, so I'm adding black and indigo. And I'm putting that in the darkest spots of his head and his beak. So you see, wherever you leave the lighter spots, it gives the head shape. And so wherever, like if something is round, the rounded part will be closest to the light, and that will be either have a very light spot, or you won't even see any color. Sometimes it looks white because it's so bright. And this is just a fun little project, and the more you practice, the better you get. So it's always fun. It's always good to have something new to do. I have mentioned in other videos that I do find it a little tricky to come up with ideas that are new, that you would not necessarily see somewhere else. It's very difficult, because I find when something's trending, everybody does it all at the same time. And I know for me, because I also watch YouTube, to me it gets a little bit boring, and I certainly don't want you to be bored. I want you to tune in and enjoy painting and try out these ideas. Look how cute and pudgy he is. This particular penguin is called a Gen 2 penguin, and from what I read, they are the third largest penguin. So I'm not sure how big that makes them, but I do know emperor penguins stand almost 3 feet tall, I believe. So this penguin, third largest, must be pretty big. So I'm slowly adding in some more of that dark paint. It's the black with the indigo, and it's wet. The head is wet. I'm not doing any of this dry. Anytime I work with black or very dark colors, I tend to work in wet on wet, keeping everything nice and soft. I hope you have as much fun watching this as I do painting it. I really want you to feel free if there's something you want to know, learn, if you want to just simply watch me paint, just leave me a suggestion. I'm open to suggestions because like I said earlier, it's really hard to come up with something unique in such a vast world as YouTube. My next couple of videos will be based on a portrait that I'm working on. And so, for example, how I paint hair and the different methods you can use, and maybe even the eyes. I'll see how that goes. So stay tuned if that interests you. So I'm adding more turquoise in to the lighter parts just to emphasize. And I love to have, when you have something black, you often do see the color blue, and you see the color, sometimes you see greens and purples, and depending on the lighting, because black reflects just like white does. Everything reflects off of it and onto it, so you really do see a lot of other color in it. And here I'm adding a bit more shape to the belly, and so it really looks like the foot is tucked up and he's jumping down with the other foot. He's splashing really hard. And as soon as I add some water, it'll really look like he's splashing. And this warm yellow is just to bring that chest forward a little bit. And here we go. My intention here is to make it look like sort of melting ice, and the penguin has found this tiny little melted spot and he decides to splash in it. And just trying to make different shades within, using the same blues within it, just so it looks like when something has only one value, it looks flat. So always try to use 2 or 3 different values. It could be the same color like it is here, but it won't look flat. So now it looks like it could be broken ice or snow that's melting. And I mix the orange with blue to get, they neutralize each other. So that's just the shadow color I want it to use on the foot. And I outline the toes with it as well, but I add more orange because this turned out to be quite gray, and I didn't want it to be that dark, so I add more orange to it. And always depends on the shade of orange. This is a cool orange, and that's also a cool blue. So it turned out to be more gray than it did brown. Sometimes when you mix orange and blue, it'll turn more of a brown color. I can't recommend enough the importance of playing with your watercolors, and maybe even working with a limited palette, and you become less fearful mixing your colors, and you just have to remind yourself that this is only paper. You don't, nothing bad's going to happen if you say, boy, I hate this, I have to throw it out. And you learn so much by doodling. Just get your get your brush, your water, and your paper ready, and just start playing. And there's some water, splashes of water. And I could have been a lot looser about this. I was just trying to be a bit neat about it. Sometimes I can be kind of messy in my painting, and just splashing some fun color, more of that turquoise, and adding a glint to the eye, and more kind of melty ice on the bottom. And then I get to take the masking tape off, but I should wait till it's completely dry, and look at my finished project. So I hope you enjoyed this video. It's a very quick one. I hope you give it a try. And if you did, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel. And also leave me a comment. I'd just love to hear from you. Happy watercoloring. Bye bye.